They say Alaska is one of the last truly wild places. Deadly cold, endless darkness, a silence so deep you can hear your own thoughts turning against you. But I'm here to tell you something far more terrifying than snow and ice. Today, you're going to hear 3 true horror stories from Alaska. Accounts that were never meant to be told. Stories of people who vanished without a trace, of screams echoing through frozen valleys, of cursed buildings in the middle of nowhere. And let me warn you now, nothing will prepare you for what comes next. Have you ever wondered why humans fear emptiness so much? Because the void stares back, and in Alaska that void is infinite. Blizzards that hide corpses for decades. Strange whistles carried on the wind. Distant signs of something moving beneath the ice. Are you ready for this? Ready to face the kind of horror that can't be explained? I want you to pay attention to every detail of these stories, because those who listen all the way to the end sometimes can't sleep in peace ever again. Before we begin, let me say this. Like the video, share it with someone who deserves to have nightmares tonight, and subscribe to the channel so you're never alone in the dark. Lock your doors, turn off the lights, and get ready to plunge with me into the darkest secrets of Alaska. I never liked the ocean, not even as a kid. I was always terrified of not knowing what was down there in the dark. The idea of sinking beyond the light, where there's only cold and silence, made me tremble. So why the hell did I become a rescue diver? Maybe to conquer that fear. Maybe to prove to myself I was stronger, but I'm not. I never was. And after what happened in Alaska, I'm sure the sea isn't meant for humans. Because there are things down there that don't want to be seen, things that don't care about our lives or our sanity. We were called for a rescue mission at an offshore oil platform off the Alaskan coast. In winter, the coldest, most dangerous waters on the planet. A crane collapsed and dropped an entire maintenance pod to the seabed with 3 engineers inside. The pressure and cold would kill them in minutes, but there was a chance they were in an air pocket. We were the elite team, the best. We knew the risks. We arrived by helicopter, with the wind screaming like a dying animal, rocking the platform. The water below was nearly black. The waves hit so hard you had to hold on to the rails or get swept away. Everything smelled of salt, oil, and rust. The instructions were clear. Get down fast, find the wreck, stabilize it, check for survivors. I remember the sick feeling in my stomach while checking my gear. The dive mask seemed to grin at me, mocking me like it already knew my fate. But there was no backing out. I was the team leader. 5 men with me, all trusting me to get them home. When I sat on the edge and stared into the abyss, I felt the cold crawl through me before I even hit the water. The surface broke into white foam, hiding what lay beneath. I took a deep breath, held it, and jumped. The water swallowed me like a liquid coffin. Everything turned dark green. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. But I forced myself to keep going. There was no turning back, only down, only darkness. The first thing I felt was the shock. Alaskan water bites to the bone. Even in a top-tier dry suit, it was like thin blades pressing into every inch of me. My hands shook. I tried to keep my breathing calm, controlled, but my visor fogged up from the heat of my breath. Every time I wiped it with thick gloves, I asked myself why the hell I was doing this. The helmet lights barely lit a few meters ahead. Frozen particles drifted like underwater snow, creating a murky fog. All around was dark green, lifeless. Even so, we moved in tight formation. The safety lines held us together, but they swayed in the icy current, like invisible fingers trying to pull us apart. The radio was intermittent, voices cutting in and out, static. Sometimes all you heard was heavy breathing, amplified in the mic, and occasionally something that sounded like a sob. When I asked who it was, everyone swore they hadn't said anything. Around 30 meters down, we spotted the pod on the seafloor, tipped on its side. It was half buried in black silt. The metal looked warped, like something huge had bitten it. I had to swallow down bile when my light swept over a crack in the hull, and I saw what looked like an arm floating free inside. I ordered everyone to hold formation. We circled the pod, searching for the emergency hatch. That's when the water changed. Not just color, it turned nearly black, but texture. It felt thicker, almost oily, and cold in an unnatural way, burning even through the suit. My visor vibrated with a distant rumble, a deep, slow pounding, like something massive dragging itself through the depths. The sound came from everywhere at once, echoing in our helmets. Then the radio picked up a voice. It wasn't one of us. It wasn't human. Slow, wet, like it was speaking from a drowned throat. Turn back, turn back, turn back. The others started screaming on the comms, begging to ascend. But I ordered them to hold. We had to check for survivors, finish the mission. But deep down in my chest, I already knew something was wrong, very wrong. As I forced myself forward, I saw something beyond the pod, a hole in the seafloor, black as pitch, and from inside, slow bubbles drifted upward, like the ocean itself was breathing. I'd like to say I kept my cool, but I'd be lying. My pulse pounded so hard I felt it vibrate in my mask. My flashlight beam shook in my hand. My teammates were screaming over the radio, all talking at once. Junior was yelling to go up, swearing something was tugging at his harness. Paolo was openly crying, begging to leave. I tried to order silence, but the channel was possessed. Our voices overlapped with that wet, guttural whisper. Turn back, leave, open, open. Even with the radio off, I heard it in my head. Pressure built in my ears, like the entire ocean was trying to crush me. I signaled for us to keep moving toward the hatch. We had to check. It was the goddamn job, but no one wanted to move. They were shaking like leaves on a branch. Then something moved between us, huge. We didn't see it clearly, miss, just the water roiling, shoving us apart. The safety lines went taut as if something had grabbed them deliberately. My flashlight caught a deep trench in the silt, like something massive had crawled through, leaving no trace of fins or tail. Just a smooth channel, as if it buried itself to wait. Paolo screamed and let go of the line, shooting upward. I tried to grab him, but he vanished into the darkness. His voice shrieked in the comms, followed by a wet, tearing sound, then silence. Just an open channel hissing. Junior lost it completely, sobbing. He said hands were clutching his legs, whispering to him in a twisted, ancient language. I reached for him, but something hit my helmet. Fey vibration so deep I saw white spots in the black. My vision blurred. Suddenly my lights died. The radio let out that thick, drowning breath. Then nothing. Impossible silence, suffocating. I tried to steady myself, breathing deep, but felt something moving right next to me. Something brushed my suit, cold, smooth, heavy. I shook so badly I nearly lost my regulator, swung my light wildly. For 1 second I swear I saw eyes, dozens, arranged in dead coral patterns, glinting red. Below them, a slit pulsed open and shut, sucking water in like a massive lung. The safety lines jerked again, dragging another diver away. His scream turned to bubbles, then silence. The pull was steady, patient, savoring our terror. I fumbled for my knife, trying to cut free, but my shaking hand slipped. Over the radio, I heard the pod's hatch groaning, cracking open, and a voice, a wail, so old it made me sob. It called our names, one by one, in a motherly, sweet tone, like it wanted to rock us to sleep forever. I don't know how I didn't go insane down there. Maybe I did. After the lights died and the comms fell silent, all I had was my own breathing, ragged and wet in my ears. The cold bit so deep it felt like shards of glass under my skin. Something brushed past me again, not darting like a fish, slow, deliberate, like a living mass making sure I felt it. I held my breath instinctively. My chest burned. I exhaled in panicked bubbles. Then the voices started, not over the comms, in my head, whispering in languages I didn't know, ancient tongues, and mingled with them, my own name, spoken in my own voice, twisting my worst fears into lullabies. I screamed at them to stop, but there was no one to hear. I felt hands clutching my legs, pulling gently, not jerking, almost lovingly, like an embrace that wouldn't let go. Something slid along my cheek, cold, slimy, heavy. I sobbed. My tears mixed with the visor fog, warping everything. Shapes moved around me, elongated forms with tentacles lined in blinking eyes, out of sync. Some coiled around ancient structures half buried in silt, as if they'd grown there for centuries. I saw bones, human bones fused into pale coral colonies, skulls cracked like shells, and in the distance, that hole, that black hole in the seabed breathed, sending up bubbles like sighs. Inside, I swear on everything, I saw an eye, massive, split with black veins, watching us all, weighing our souls. The safety lines snaked like living things. One by one, my team vanished into the dark, their screams muffled to silence. The radio filled with wet bubbling, then nothing. The cold bit deeper, freezing my fingers and toes until they felt like they'd snap. I slashed my line in a panic, kicked upward with everything I had, but something followed. I felt the water churn behind me, thicker than before. My lungs burned. I exhaled hard, bubbles blinding me. The last thing I heard was that whisper inside my skull. You're already ours, always were. They pulled me out unconscious. They say they found me floating near the surface, suit shredded in fine lines like claws had traced over it without breaking skin. In the hospital, no one believed me, said it was trauma, hypoxia, extreme cold. But they couldn't explain the bruises on my ankles, finger marks too long to be human. As for my team, no bodies, no trace, just the eternal silence of the deep. Sometimes, alone in my dark room, I still hear the regulators hiss, that wet, clicking breath, and I know I never finished escaping, because in my dreams, I'm always sinking back down, back to that hole in the seabed, and it's always there, waiting for me. I never wanted to tell anyone this, but I can't take the nightmares anymore. There's something in Alaska that still haunts me, something that shouldn't exist. It all started when I took a job as a forest ranger in a remote Valley D, surrounded by mountains sharp as blades and a wind that howled like a wounded animal. They paid well because no one else wanted to stay there. The people in the nearest town said the place was cursed, that anyone who slept there alone would never come back the same. I didn't believe them. I thought it was just folklore to scare outsiders. I went there on a grey autumn afternoon when the sun had lost all its warmth. Everything was so calm, so unnaturally quiet. The kind of silence that makes your heart pound just to have a sound. I remember thinking, it's just an old cabin in the middle of nowhere. What could go wrong? But I didn't know. No one knows. Not until you're inside, alone, listening to the wind pound against the windows as if it's trying to get in. That first night was hard because of the cold. I had an old gas heater that coughed more than it heated. As the wind slammed against the rotten boards, I huddled under a thick blanket, trying to convince myself there was nothing out there. But around 3 in the morning, something started to bother me. A sound almost imperceptible. It wasn't the wind. It was a slow and repeated creaking, as if someone were walking very carefully across the wooden porch. I froze, held my breath. The sound kept going, each dragging step making my skin crawl. At some point, it stopped right at the door. I could hear the wind whistling through the cracks, but this other sound was deeper, heavier. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe an animal, a lost moose, but no creature would stand there that long, breathing slow, almost human. I lay there, heart racing, sweat freezing on my back. I shut my eyes tight, praying it would leave. And then, for a moment, I swear I heard something scratching the door, 3 long, slow scrapes, like claws, like something wanting in. The second night, I was already shaken. I spent the day pacing outside the cabin, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But the silence in that valley felt alive, suffocating. When the sun set, a heavy fog rolled in, turning the world beyond the window into a blank azure white void. I lit a lantern and sat down to write in my notebook, trying to keep my sanity. That's when I heard it. A dull thud on the roof, one heavy impact like something huge had landed up there. I froze. Silence fell again, even deeper. Then came the scratching, quick, impatient, moving back and forth across the roof. It wasn't an animal. There were no tracks in the snow, nothing that could climb that rotted structure without breaking through. Then I heard a voice, Lowe's horse, whispering my name. It wasn't loud. It was intimate, too close, like it was speaking right in my ear. I spun around, but nothing was there. When I turned back to the window, I saw something standing outside. Not a clear face, just the dark shape of something tall, thin, with arms far too long. It was pressed against the glass, breathing hard, leaving frozen vapor behind. I screamed. I ran to barricade the door with everything I could find, old furniture, the heater. Outside, I heard a growl that sounded almost human, almost sad. Then, absolute silence, but I knew it hadn't left. I knew it was waiting for me. I didn't sleep at all that night. I curled up in a corner, clutching a rusty knife and waiting for daylight. But Alaska has no mercy. It dawned in a gray so dark it was practically night. I was shaking, teeth chattering, not just from cold, but from raw terror. Then I heard it again. Steps on the porch, scratching at the door. A whisper clearer than ever, saying my name like a promise. I lost it, started screaming for it to leave, claiming I wasn't afraid. But the truth was the opposite. I was unraveling inside. The door creaked hard, like something pushing it slowly. I saw the handle turn, despite all I'd piled up to block it. The wood groaned, cracked. And then I saw an arm sliding through a gap, long, skeletal, gray as the snow itself, with black claws like charred bone. I don't know how I survived. I ran for the back window and threw myself into the deep snow, twisted my ankle but didn't stop. I hobbled through the trees, hearing behind me that low growl, almost mournful, mixed with a strangled laugh. I never looked back. I just remember falling and crawling while the wind buried my screams. They found me 2 days later, nearly dead from hypothermia. They said I was delirious, talking about arms in the dark and voices that knew my name. No one believed me. When they went back to the cabin, they found it trashed inside, but with no signs of human or animal entry. I never went back to Alaska, but even now, when I close my eyes, I hear my name whispered in the dark, clawing at the back of my mind like those scratches on the door. Never thought I'd hear anything so horrifying in such a desolate place. When I signed up to work on a glaciology research team, I expected cold days, long reports, absolute silence, not living nightmares. But what I saw on that glacier, what I heard, wasn't human. They say Alaska swallows people, that it's not meant for us, that there are places where even time seems wrong. Our instructors warned us the glacier had old stories, people disappearing, teams never found. I laughed. We all did. We thought it was superstitious nonsense to spook the newbies. But when we got there, the air felt wrong. The sky was a sickly white. No sun, like we were inside a dead thing frozen stiff. The ice cracked underfoot, groaning like old bones. And the wind screamed, not normal gusts, a long, mournful howl that sounded almost human. I told myself it was just the terrain funneling the air. Only on the second night did I learn it wasn't. Our base was makeshift, just reinforced tents and a noisy generator. We slept in thermal bags side by side, shivering even in layers of clothing. The silence between the gusts was so complete, you could hear your own heartbeat. And sometimes, something else. A sound on the edge of hearing. A whisper, a sob, a plea. I should have left when I heard that, but I stayed. We were 2 days on foot from any town, and the next morning something happened that showed me how completely alone we were, alone with it. On the second day, we realized something was truly wrong. The generator failed in the middle of the night. I went out to try restarting it, shivering so badly I couldn't feel my fingers. Darkness was absolute. The sky was choked with heavy clouds that smothered even moonlight. My headlamp barely lit the vapor of my breath, freezing in the air. While I worked the frozen cables, I heard a sound behind me. At first I thought it was the wind, that constant moaning that sometimes sounded like distant voices, but this was different. It was crying. A faint, whispered sob coming from somewhere in the ice. It sounded like a child begging for help. I froze. My spine stiffened. I turned my head slowly, sweeping my light across the field. Nothing but tents half buried in snow and the glacier wall, reflecting the light in a dull, dead glow. But the crying went on, a painful, hiccuping sob. My hand trembled so badly I dropped the flashlight. When I bent to pick it up, the sound stopped. The silence was so thick I heard my own blood in my ears. Then suddenly it started again, closer now, right behind me. This time there were words, weak, dragged, whispered, help me. I stumbled backward. The ice cracked under me. My knees nearly gave out. I smelled something metallic in the freezing air, like fresh blood. I aimed the beam toward the glacier and I swear I saw movement. A thin, tall shadow dragging itself as if it were being pulled into the ice, but no one else seemed to see it. I shouted for my teammates, my voice cracking with fear. No one answered. I ran back to the tents, zipping the entrance shut so violently I ripped it. But as I turned to sit down, I heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, following me. I collapsed inside, shaking, clutching the portable heater to my chest. Outside, the wind slammed the walls, but I could tell between each gust there were muffled sobs, whispers pressing against the fabric. I didn't call for help. I didn't want to. When the pale, sick sun finally rose, no one wanted to talk about what we'd heard, but I saw it in their eyes. They'd heard it too, and no one wanted to admit it. On the third night, no one pretended not to be afraid. We sat huddled around the small gas heater, faces lit by its flickering flame, not talking much. Each of us pretended to write in notebooks or check gear, but our eyes gave us away. We were all listening. As night fell, the wind began to howl louder. It wasn't just noise. It was layered, like a chorus of voices wailing against the ice. You couldn't pretend it was random anymore. I tried stuffing socks in my ears. I still heard it. Between the gusts, I swear I heard names. Our names. Someone out there was whispering them, begging us to come out of our flimsy tents. Diaz snapped. He jumped up screaming for those damn voices to shut up. We tried to grab him, but he tore away and ripped the zipper open, running into the white fog. He vanished in seconds. We stood there, frozen, listening. Then we heard him scream, not angry, terrified. A sound so raw it felt like it cracked our bones. We scrambled outside with our headlamps bouncing wildly. Snow whipped our faces like knives. We called his name, our voices already hoarse from the cold. The wind swallowed everything, but between gusts, we could hear him, farther away, weaker, dragged, as if something was pulling him deeper into the glacier. At one point, our lights fell on something in the snow, a twisted trail, as if someone had been dragged by enormous hands. The trail led to a dark crevice in the ice and stopped there. No more tracks, no more screams, nothing. We didn't talk as we stumbled back, just listened to our crunching steps. When we finally zipped the tent shut, one of us started crying softly. I didn't sleep at all. Every time I blinked, I saw that fissure in the glacier, wide open like a hungry mouth. And worse, when the generator failed again, there wasn't just silence. There was a sound, a deep, guttural voice rising from the middle of the camp. A call, a broken laugh, something imitating our voices one by one, repeating them with strange errors, like it was learning to be human. After Diaz disappeared, everything changed. No one pretended it was the wind anymore, but we couldn't just leave. The helicopter was still a day away. I spent hours bundled in my thermal bag, listening to others sob quietly. No one slept. Someone suggested praying. But how do you pray when you don't know who to ask for help? Around 3 in the morning, the wind died. At first, that seemed like mercy, but the silence that replaced it was worse. It was heavy, expectant, smothering. I slipped out to relieve myself. The snow crunched under me like breaking teeth. As I finished, I heard a long, cavernous moan behind me. I spun around, headlamp shaking. For a second, I swear I saw a face in the ice. Eyes wide, mouth frozen open in an endless scream. When I blinked, there was only dirty snow. I stumbled back into the tent, my teammates staring at me. They didn't have to ask. We all heard it. A low wail beneath us, vibrating through the glacier. I pressed my ear to the frozen floor without thinking, and heard it whisper back. So close I felt the icy breath inside my skull. "You're not leaving." Panic took over. One of us tried the emergency radio. Static filled the air. Then something broke through. Diaz's voice, but wrong, distorted, laughing through torn vocal cords. We decided to run. We couldn't wait for the chopper. But when we unzipped the tent, we saw the field was covered in tracks. Not human. Huge prints with elongated toes sunk deep in the snow, circling the tents over and over, like it had been waiting all night for us to come out. We bolted like wounded animals. The cold ripped the skin from our faces, but none of us looked back. I heard footsteps behind us, heavy, shuffling, and voices, our own voices, calling us to stop, to rest, to give up. I don't even remember how I made it to the extraction point. They found me delirious, vomiting blood on the ice. I woke up 2 days later in a hospital, frostbite on my feet and a permanent ringing in my ears. My teammates, 2 were never found. The other won't speak. He just stares out the window, whispering that he can still hear the crying. I hear it too, sometimes, especially at night. A long, sad wail, like the wind in Alaska. But now I know, the wind doesn't make that sound alone. There's something buried out there in the ice, waiting for more voices to join its chorus. I swore I'd never set foot in Alaska again after what happened, but life has a cruel way of dragging you back into your own nightmares. I got an offer to join a team inspecting old and abandoned meteorological stations. They were Cold War relics, sealed for decades. The pay was too good. Good enough to make me forget my principles and my fear. The station we picked was on a remote plateau, only accessible by helicopter. A low, grey building buried under hardened ice and snow like concrete. The main door had been welded shut years ago, but someone, no one knows who, had broken it open. Inside it was dark, cold as a corpse. And the smell, I'll never forget it. A sharp metallic stench mixed with mold, like something had been rotting there for a very, very long time. The mission was simple: check the structure, log the old equipment, make sure nothing hazardous was leaking. But from the first step inside, I knew something was wrong. I was the team lead, so I tried to keep everyone calm. But you couldn't ignore the oppressive air, the feeling of being watched. Everything was frozen, walls cracked with icicles, wires hanging like metal entrails, overturned chairs, tables coated in frost, and handprints on the walls, lots of them. Some small like a child's, others huge with fingers too thin. I remember thinking, we won't stay here longer than necessary. But it was already too late to turn back, because the moment we entered, the door seemed to close on its own. And that was when I started wondering if the station was really abandoned. We spent the first hour walking the narrow corridors, lighting everything with our flashlights. The ice cracked under our boots like breaking bones. The walls were caked with rust and black mold. The ceiling sagged dangerously in places, but the worst thing was the silence. A silence so deep it swallowed every sound we made. One of my guys, Junior, tried to joke to break the tension, said it looked like a zombie movie set. No one laughed. He shut up for good when we found the first strange marks. Symbols scratched into an old bulletin board with something dark, almost black. They looked like letters, but twisted, written by someone who didn't know how letters worked. We photographed everything for the report, but there was something wrong with the air. It stank worse with every room we entered, a smell that burned our eyes. The radio crackled irregularly, sometimes popping as if someone were mumbling into it, but we couldn't make out the words. Then we entered the generator room and heard the first sound. Not the wind. It was sealed in there. It was a scratchy, guttural voice, like someone swallowing glass and trying to speak. It came from behind a panel. We all turned at once, panting. I asked who was there, my voice cracking. No response, just silence. Junior tried to walk around the panel to check. He cursed and dropped his flashlight. We ran over. He was trembling, eyes wide, pointing. There was something carved deep into the concrete wall, letters gouged like with claws, "Stay." And below it, crooked, almost childlike, "Here with me." We froze. The wind outside howled so loud it sounded like laughter. But the worst was realizing the door we came in through had shut on its own. The latch turned from the inside, like someone or something didn't want us to leave. That was the first time I felt real fear, not just nerves or unease. That deep ancestral terror of knowing we were trapped with something that wanted to play with us. We tried to stay calm after what we saw in the generator room, but the air felt heavier. Every breath came out in thick clouds of vapor, even as the cold bit deep. Junior wouldn't talk. He just held the flashlight too tight, his knuckles white. We kept moving because we had no choice. The way back was blocked. We explored narrow halls, stepping on brittle, groaning floors. At one point we found an old dorm, rusted iron beds, all frosted over. But the worst were the blankets. Some were bundled as if someone was still lying there. I approached one, shining my light. I saw an indentation shaped like a body, like something very thin had curled up there until it froze solid. When I touched the blanket, it cracked into shards of ice. I heard something shift on the floor, a dragging scrape, like nails on concrete. I swung the beam but saw nothing, but I heard it. We all did. A whisper from all directions. Overlapping voices, like a chorus of children singing out of sync. Disjointed words, "Stay, play, never leave." The radio crackled. Amid the static, there were voices, mine, saying things I'd never said. "I want to stay here. I love you." I tried to shut it off, but it powered back on by itself, repeating that distorted phrase in my voice like a mockery. The ceiling cracked with a loud pop. Chunks of ice fell. Our flashlights flickered. We saw something move at the end of the hallway, tall, thin, with arms dragging along the floor like its bones were broken in dozens of places. It turned toward us without a face. Just thin, almost translucent skin stretched over something pulsing beneath. We ran. We crashed into each other, knocking over rotten furniture, trying to find any way out. The voices followed, screaming in our ears from nowhere. It felt like they were coming from inside our heads. I felt something grab my ankle. I almost fell face first. When I looked down, I saw only my own shadow. No one spoke anymore, just crying and screaming. We pushed at doors that led nowhere, slammed into cracked walls. The entire building felt like it was shifting, expanding and contracting to keep us inside. I can't even say how long we were trapped in there. The cold was so fierce, my lips split open, bleeding and freezing at the same time. The radio spat static intermittently, along with our own voices played back in twisted, mocking tones. Every corridor we tried led us back to the same room, the dorm, now even more mangled, the beds looking freshly disturbed. At one point we heard laughing, not loud, low, muffled, like someone trying to choke it back. We turned toward it. My flashlight beam fell on one of my teammates, Paolo, standing there, eyes bulging, mouth split in a smile that wasn't his. He was crying even as he laughed. Fat, frozen tears ran down his face. I spoke to him, begged him to snap out of it, but he just repeated, "Stay, stay, stay." Then he fell to his knees. He vomited something black onto the floor. It looked like blood mixed with mold. The smell was so foul it burned my nose. I tried to pull him away, but he shoved me with surprising strength, said in a voice that wasn't his, "This is your home too now." I ran. Behind me, I heard boots pounding on the floor, voices shouting my name when then cutting off like someone slamming a door. When I looked back, no one was there. Just the dark hall and that suffocated laughter. I tried every door, none opened. The wind outside was gone, or at least I couldn't hear it anymore. It was like the world outside had ceased to exist. I pressed my back to the freezing wall, heart hammering so hard I thought it would explode. That's when I saw it. In the cracked, filthy glass, I saw something behind me. Tall, skeletal, long arms dragging along the ground. No face, just that thin, pulsing skin stretched tight with black veins. It raised one hand and rested it on my shoulder. I screamed, but no sound came out. My legs gave way. I fell to the floor as the lights died one by one. Before I blacked out, I heard its voice, mine or theirs, or all of them that lived in that station. "Now you're part of this. No one leaves, ever." I woke up in a hospital days later. They found me outside, unconscious, with frostbite on my legs. Said I hallucinated, that none of it was real, but they never found the others. No trace at all. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I feel that hand on my shoulder again, and I hear voices, not just my team, many others, whispering for me to come back, telling me the station is still there, waiting, always waiting. If you made it this far, congratulations. Not everyone can stomach these stories to the end, but be careful. Alaska is still out there, cold, silent, and hungry. If you like this story, click the link below and discover even deeper horrors in our exclusive ebook. Like the video, share it with someone who deserves a nightmare tonight, and subscribe to the channel. After all, the darker the path, the more we want to see where it leads.
You made it to the end. Congratulations. Not everyone survives this long in the dark. But be careful. Alaska knows you now, and it doesn't forget faces. Thank you for watching all the way through, or should I say, for staying trapped here with me. If you enjoyed it, like the video, share it with someone who deserves to lose sleep tonight, and subscribe to the channel, because in the darkness, someone is always listening.